Powerful point, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Scott.
So I think I want to follow with what Senator Blumenthal said. So I joined the Navy at 18. They didn't tell me I was going to sleep in barracks. We didn't have barracks. We had a ship. 57 of us left, 3 racks up. I think it was 7 feet tall. So we had a rack that was as long as I am tall, and everything we owned was in a container that size. That was it. So the showers actually didn't work that much because when we were out to sea, because the desalinization stuff didn't work a lot of times, and they shut it off right in the middle of a shower, which was really nice, right when you soap down. Food, not the best, better than what my dad had. He was in the Army. So I think it goes back to mission. And we had a hearing on this, and I don't know if you remember hearing much about how they were selling mission. I didn't. But the truth is, if you're in business, if you can't sell a mission, you're not going to recruit people. Actually, our offices, I bet, we find really good people because we have a mission. And so I think it goes back to we got to really sell why we're doing what we're doing. And I think our military leadership and whoever's the president's got to sell the fact that we're doing this for a very specific reason and purpose, and how important it is. And if we don't, I think it's going to continue to be hard. And you have to admire what the Marines are doing because they figured it out. So can I ask you a question? Does anybody meet with y'all? I mean, you put out these nice reports. Does anybody care, for the military? Who cares? Who talks to you guys? And
I would say yes. We, for the most part, have a good working sort of collegial relationship with DOD officials. They do implement many of our recommendations, but I'll also note that DOD has the lowest implementation rate in terms of implementing GAO recommendations compared to other agencies. So yes, they meet with us. I think many of them are committed, hardworking civil servants, but we would like to see our recommendations implemented at a higher rate.
Same thing.
So for us, same thing for us. I think we do a lot of outreach with senior officials and with others, and whether that is around the world, I travel around the world to meet with folks in different organizations and different commands and understand what their challenges are and so forth, and I think we get very positive, candid feedback there. And then once we issue a report, or I believe that for the most part, DOD handles it in a very professional way and takes it seriously, and sometimes recommendations are a little harder to implement, but for the most part, I think the relationship is positive.
We're not really a recommendation generating agency. We don't make recommendations. We kind of deal more with policy, options, and choices. So it's a little less direct, but we certainly do hear from DOD when they don't like things that we've written, or when they like things that we've written. We hear from members or staff on the committee. So I think it just really depends for us on the study.
Well, in business, the shareholders, the board, you don't keep your job if you don't do your audit right? I mean, it's the most basic thing you have to do, or the CEO is not going to stay there. Because if you get a bad audit, you can be delisted if you're a public company. So I guess part of it is we've got to hold people accountable on our part at the senior level if we expect them to follow what you guys do. Ms. Phillips, can I ask you a question? Can you tell me what the difference between take an officer that has active duty military working for them, and then they hire an outside firm to do the work, and so you end up with either a civilian that works part of the federal government, or a civilian that works for Booz Allen, whatever. How do they manage them? Because it sure seems like it would be awfully difficult if they're not in the military and you're an officer. How do you manage these people? Can you fire them? Can you say you're not going to get a promotion? What do you get to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's difficult, and I think part of the issue, and I will go back to the health system just because it's an example that I think people can really grasp and identify with. The contracting companies, so let's say Booz Allen, they get to decide who they're going to send to fill a contract. And what we heard when we went around to military treatment facilities is, if we don't like the candidate that they send, and they, by the way, have the companies have 30 to 60 days to propose a candidate, they can send that candidate back, but then that company has another 30, sometimes 60 days.
You're paying all this time.
Under the contract, yes. And so what we heard from MTFs was that in some cases they have to decide between filling a position with a subpar candidate or leaving that position vacant. So it's a real problem.
What about on this, what about if they're a federal employee? So if the choice between a federal employee and a military member, how do you manage them? What would be the differences?
So I think my understanding, and then I've certainly observed this, is that active duty military try to treat everybody as part of the team. That's not surprising given the emphasis on leadership in the military. But they do still face the same struggles that we see sort of across the civilian workforce. And so Senator Warren pointed out that GAO's high-risk list. Federal strategic human capital is on that high-risk list because it is so hard to manage the federal workforce, civilian workforce, in the way that would be most effective.